The last drop of water disappeared yesterday. Now your water skin hangs from your shoulder, completely empty. The nearest spring is somewhere beyond the horizon, if you can still reach it. The desert is silent. No birds, no insects, just an endless sea of sand, shimmering beneath the midday sun. At first, the thirst was annoying. Now, it's becoming painful. Your lips have begun to crack. Your tongue sticks to the roof of your mouth. Even swallowing hurts. But none of that is the most dangerous part. Something far worse has already begun. Your brain is slowly turning against you. Most people imagine dying of thirst as a long, miserable decline. A body becoming weaker, a traveler collapsing into the sand. But that's usually not how the story ends. Instead, the desert does something far crueler. It convinces you that you're making the right decisions, right before you make the worst one of your life. For thousands of years, people crossed some of the harshest deserts on Earth without bottled water, GPS, or rescue teams. Some returned. Many never did. The difference wasn't strength, it wasn't bravery, and it certainly wasn't luck. It was knowledge. Knowledge so valuable that entire cultures survived because they passed it from one generation to the next. So, what actually happens when the water runs out? You can survive for weeks without food. Water is different. Lose it, and the countdown begins almost immediately. The average human body is made of roughly 60% water. Your blood depends on it. Your muscles depend on it. Even the electrical signals inside your brain rely on it. Every second you're alive, your body is quietly losing water. You lose it when you breathe. You lose it when you sweat. You even lose it while you sleep. On a cool day, that adds up to around 2 liters. In the desert, that number can become 5 times higher. Imagine pouring 20 bottles of water onto the ground before sunset. That's how much your body can lose in extreme heat. And here's the cruel part. Your body knows exactly what's happening. It keeps sweating anyway. Because sweat isn't wasting water. It's buying you time. Every drop that evaporates carries heat away from your skin. Without it, your body temperature begins climbing toward dangerous levels. You're trapped in an impossible trade. Keep sweating, and you'll eventually run out of water. Stop sweating, and your organs begin overheating. Either way, the clock keeps ticking. At first, the warning signs seem obvious. Your mouth feels dry. Your lips split. A dull headache settles behind your eyes. You're thirsty. Very thirsty. But thirst isn't an early warning. It's a late one. By the time you feel truly thirsty, your body is already trying to catch up. Then the symptoms begin changing. Your heart beats faster, not because you're running, because there's less fluid left to circulate through your body. Your blood becomes more concentrated. Standing up makes you dizzy. Your urine turns darker, then smaller in amount. Eventually, there may be almost none at all. Still, none of these are what frighten survival experts the most. The real danger isn't happening in your muscles, it's happening in your mind. At first, it's almost impossible to notice. You misjudge distances. You forget small details. You tell yourself the next hill must have water behind it. It doesn't. You convince yourself that leaving the trail will save time. It won't. Doctors who treated severe dehydration describe something deeply unsettling. People often insist they're thinking perfectly clearly while making catastrophically bad decisions. Some become strangely optimistic. Others ignore obvious danger. A few even walk away from rescuers because they're convinced they know a better route. The desert doesn't just drain the water from your body, it quietly steals your judgment. And here's the twist almost nobody expects. Most people who die in the desert don't actually die because they became thirsty. They die because dehydration and rising body temperature begin affecting the one thing they need most, their ability to think. But if humans are so vulnerable, Why did our ancestors survive deserts at all? Shouldn't evolution have prepared us for this? The answer is one of nature's cruelest trade-offs. So why are humans so vulnerable? After all, our species evolved in Africa. We've crossed deserts for hundreds of thousands of years. Shouldn't we be built for this? The answer is yes and no. Humans possess one of the greatest cooling systems evolution ever created. Not sharp teeth, not powerful claws, not incredible speed. Sweat. It sounds ordinary. It isn't. Imagine an antelope running beneath the blazing afternoon sun. For the first few minutes, it's effortlessly faster than you. But speed has a hidden cost. Every sprint fills its muscles with heat. And unlike humans, most mammals have only one way to cool themselves down. They pant. Panting works until the air itself becomes scorching hot. Eventually, the animal has no choice. It slows, then it stops. It stands in the shade, breathing heavily, desperately trying not to overheat. But you keep walking. One step, then another, then another. Your pace isn't impressive. Your endurance is. Instead of cooling yourself by breathing faster, your skin releases millions of tiny droplets of sweat. Each one carries heat away as it evaporates. Anthropologists believe this remarkable adaptation allowed ancient humans to hunt in a way almost no predator could, not by outrunning prey, by outlasting it. Picture a hunter following an exhausted antelope across an open plain. The animal sprints away. Hours later, the hunter is still behind it. The antelope runs again. The hunter keeps walking. Again and again. By late afternoon, the antelope's body begins shutting down from heat exhaustion. The hunter isn't faster. He's simply the last one still moving. It's called persistence hunting, and some hunter-gatherer communities have practiced versions of it into modern times. Many researchers believe it may be one of the oldest hunting strategies our species ever developed. So, if sweating made us such incredible survivors, why is the desert still so deadly? Because every superpower has a price. Every drop of sweat cooling your skin is also draining the water your body cannot afford to lose. Your greatest defense is quietly becoming your greatest weakness. Imagine carrying a bucket with a tiny hole in the bottom. As long as someone keeps pouring water in, you'll never notice the leak. But the moment the water stops, the bucket empties faster than you expect. That's exactly how your body works. It isn't designed to store water, it's designed to keep replacing it. Compare that to a camel. A camel can lose around a quarter of its body weight in water and keep walking. A human doesn't have that luxury. Lose around 10% and you're already entering life-threatening territory. Evolution didn't make us living water tanks. It made us expert travelers. Our ancestors survived because they knew where the next drink would come from, not because they could survive without it. And that's the difference modern people often misunderstand. Ancient humans weren't tougher. Their bodies were almost identical to yours. Their advantage wasn't hidden inside their muscles, it was hidden inside their memory. They knew where water collected after rare rains, which plants stored moisture beneath the ground, which bird to follow, which animal tracks led somewhere worth walking. To an outsider, the desert looked empty. To them, it was filled with signs, signs that meant life or death. And nowhere was that knowledge more extraordinary than among the people who made some of Earth's driest deserts their home. So, if your body isn't built to survive without water, how did people live in some of the driest places on Earth for thousands of years? The answer wasn't strength. It wasn't luck. It was knowledge. Knowledge so valuable that it wasn't written down. It was remembered. Because in the desert, forgetting a single lesson could cost your life. The first rule was surprisingly simple. Never fight the desert. Move with it. To an outsider, the hottest part of the day seems like the best time to travel. The sun is high. The path is easy to see. You can cover more ground. It feels logical. It's also one of the fastest ways to die. People who truly understood the desert often did the opposite. They walked before sunrise, rested through the brutal afternoon heat, then continued again as the sun disappeared below the horizon. It wasn't about comfort, it was about survival. Every hour spent under the midday sun forced the body to sweat away water it couldn't replace. Traveling at night dramatically slowed that loss. Even today, desert survival instructors teach exactly the same rule. Some lessons never became outdated. But timing alone wasn't enough. You still had to find water, and that's where the real expertise began. Imagine standing in the middle of the Kalahari. No rivers, no lakes, no streams. Nothing but dry sand stretching to the horizon. Most people would see a wasteland. The sand people saw a map. A patch of greener grass, a shallow depression in the ground, the shape of a distant tree. Tiny details that most travelers would walk straight past. Each one could mean water. Sometimes it was hidden just beneath the surface. An experienced tracker would kneel, push a hollow reed deep into damp sand, and begin drinking. To someone seeing it for the first time, it looked impossible. Water from dry ground. It wasn't magic. It was observation refined over thousands of years. And finding water was only half the challenge. Keeping it was just as important. The San carried water in one of the simplest and most ingenious containers ever invented: ostrich eggs. The shell was emptied, cleaned, and sealed with a grass plug. Light enough to carry for days, strong enough to survive long journeys. Sometimes they buried these eggshell canteens beneath the sand along familiar routes. Months later, they knew exactly where to dig. Imagine walking across hundreds of kilometers of desert, already knowing your next drink was waiting underground. Half a world away, Aboriginal peoples in Australia's deserts developed different solutions, but they followed the same principle. The landscape always leaves clues. What looked like an ordinary tree to a visitor could signal groundwater hidden far below. Certain roots stored drinkable moisture. Others pointed toward soakages, small reservoirs concealed beneath dry earth. Even animals became guides. Fresh kangaroo tracks, birds flying low at dawn, bees disappearing into a rocky hillside. None of these guaranteed water, but together they told a story. The desert was constantly giving away its secrets. You simply had to know how to read them. That's the biggest misconception about ancient survival. We imagine people conquering nature. They didn't. They listened to it. Every journey followed routes remembered for generations. Every camp was chosen because someone, perhaps centuries earlier, had discovered water nearby. The desert wasn't an enemy. It was a library. Every hill, every tree, every dry riverbed, every animal trail, each one contained information. And people who learned to read that information could survive in places that seemed impossible. But all of that knowledge depended on one thing: keeping your mind clear enough to use it. And that's exactly what dehydration begins taking away first. Here's the cruelest part of all. The desert rarely kills in a single moment. It waits. Imagine you've been walking for 2 days. Your water is gone. Your body is overheating. Your thoughts feel strangely slow. Then you see it, a dark line on the horizon. Maybe it's trees. Maybe it's a rocky cliff with shade. Maybe it's water. You change direction, just a small detour, just for a few minutes. It feels like the smartest decision you've made all day. It isn't. The water was never there. The shade doesn't exist. The cool blue shimmer dancing above the sand is a mirage, light bending through layers of superheated air. Your eyes aren't failing. They're reporting exactly what the light is doing. The real problem is your brain. Instead of questioning what it sees, it clings to hope, and hope can be deadly. Many people who died in deserts weren't lacking courage. They weren't inexperienced. Some even knew the correct route, but dehydration quietly stole the one tool they needed most: good judgment. A wrong turn became another kilometer. Another kilometer became another hour. And another hour under the desert sun was often more than the body could survive. That's why ancient desert cultures treated water knowledge almost like sacred knowledge. Not because the desert was mysterious, because forgetting, even once, could erase generations of experience in a single afternoon. So, would you survive? Maybe, maybe not. It would have very little to do with how strong you were, or how brave. The desert has never cared about either. It doesn't reward confidence. It doesn't punish fear. It simply follows its own rules. The people who survived weren't superhuman. They became students of the landscape. They learned when to move, when to stop, which birds to follow, which plants to trust, which valleys held water after rain, which ones had been dry for generations. That knowledge wasn't written in books. It lived inside people, passed from parents to children, from elders to young hunters, one lesson at a time. Because forgetting even one of those lessons could mean someone never came home. Today, if you're lost in the desert, you can call for help. A satellite can locate you within meters. A rescue helicopter can reach places that once took days to cross. A bottle of clean water costs less than a cup of coffee. For most of human history, none of those things existed. The only map was memory. The only rescue was the person walking beside you. And the only mistake you were allowed to make was none at all. It's easy to look back at ancient people and imagine they survived because life was somehow simpler. The truth is exactly the opposite. They survived because they understood something many of us have forgotten. Nature isn't something you conquer. It's something you learn. Every landscape has rules. Ignore them, and it doesn't matter how intelligent you are. Follow them, and even the harshest environments become possible to survive. That's the real story, hidden beneath thousands of years of desert survival. It wasn't about becoming tougher than nature. It was about becoming humble enough to listen to it. And perhaps that's why these survival skills lasted for thousands of years. Not because they were traditions, because they worked. Somewhere in the world's deserts today, there are still ancient footpaths, still hidden springs, still animal trails leading toward water. Most of us would walk straight past them without noticing. The people who lived there never would. Because where we see an empty desert, they saw instructions. And those instructions kept generations alive. So the next time you take a drink of water without thinking about it, remember this. For your ancestors, water wasn't just a resource. It was time. Every sip bought another hour, another mile, another chance to see tomorrow. Because in the desert, you don't run out of water all at once. You run out of time. If you enjoyed uncovering the real history behind one of humanity's greatest survival challenges, subscribe to Ancient Actually. Every week, we separate myth from evidence and reveal the remarkable ways ancient people survived a world that was far harsher than most of us can imagine. Because history isn't just about what happened, it's about discovering why it happened and what it can still teach us today.